There's a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. A heaviness in the body that begins somewhere far deeper, not in your bones, but in your beliefs. You try to eat well, move often, drink water, do all the right things, but still your body aches. Your motivation dips. Your energy comes and goes like a tide you can't control. What if the real problem isn't in your habits, but in the quiet war between your thoughts and your nervous system? What if your body is only acting out what your mind believes it must survive? This isn't just stress. This is biology, because your health doesn't start with what you do. It starts with what you think, and more importantly, what you feel is safe. Tonight, let's explore how the mind quietly shapes your body, and how changing the stories you live by might be the real medicine you've been missing. Before we begin, take a breath. This is going to be slow, soft, and honest. If something in you has felt off for a long time, this story might explain why. If it helps you, pass it on. Comment your thoughts as we go, not just to share, but to process. And subscribe if you want more of these quiet conversations between science and the soul, because you're not broken, and you're not alone. Let's learn how health starts in the mind. Chapter 1: The Silent Instructions. How beliefs shape biology. Before a body breaks down, a belief speaks first. There's something strange about healing. It never quite begins in the places we expect, in a pill, in a routine, in a workout plan. Often it begins in the quiet, unexamined spaces of the mind. The places where no one ever taught us to look. The places where stories form, not from science, but from survival. You've probably felt it. That tension in your chest that flares when someone raises their voice. That fatigue that settles in, not after doing too much, but after trying to be too much for too long. The body, it turns out, doesn't just respond to reality. It responds to what you believe reality is. And these beliefs, they don't shout. They whisper. Over time, they become silent instructions, shaping how your biology functions beneath awareness. Like background code running a machine. Like the posture you don't realize you hold until your shoulders start to ache. You may not remember the moment you learned to clench, to shrink, to overperform. But your body does. It learned what was safe. It learned what got love. And it adjusted everything. Your cortisol levels, your digestive patterns, your immune defenses, to keep you alive in the world that your beliefs told you was dangerous. Think about it. A child raised in a home full of chaos may grow into an adult who associates stillness with danger. Their body remains on high alert, not because there's a threat, but because their mind once decided that rest was unsafe. Someone who grew up only receiving praise when they succeeded might internalize a belief. I am only valuable when I perform, and so the nervous system never lets them relax. Adrenaline becomes their fuel. Cortisol becomes their morning coffee. Sleep becomes elusive, not because they don't want it, but because some old part of them is still running a race they never signed up for. These beliefs don't just affect thoughts. They affect cells. They affect hormones. They affect whether your body prioritizes healing or just surviving another day. There's a study you should know about. Back in 1998, the Adverse Childhood Experiences ACE study revealed something stunning. The more emotional trauma a person experienced in childhood, the higher their risk for chronic illness in adulthood, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, even cancer. But here's the deeper truth. It wasn't just what happened. It was what the body learned from what happened. The core belief that formed quietly, invisibly. The world is not safe. I must always be ready. I can't rest. No one will protect me, so I must do it all. These aren't just emotional conclusions. They become physiological instructions. They change how your body allocates resources, responds to inflammation, or metabolizes food. Because to the brain, belief is biology. You might not remember the moment your system encoded a belief like this, but you feel the ripple effects. You feel it when you can't slow down without guilt. You feel it when your stomach flares up the moment you get stressed. You feel it when your energy crashes after a single day of doing nothing wrong. And most of all, you feel it in the quiet moments when the body finally gets a chance to speak. In the silence, it tells you what it's been carrying. The tight jaw, the shallow breath, the ache in your back that no stretch can fix, the fog in your mind that no amount of sleep seems to clear. Let's pause here for a moment, not to judge yourself, not to fix, but to reflect. What beliefs might your body be obeying? Is it obeying a belief that rest is dangerous, that you must always prove your worth, that emotions are a threat, that burnout is noble, that pain is weakness? It's okay if the answers feel uncomfortable, because this isn't about blame, it's about awareness, the first medicine. There's a saying in neuroscience, neurons that fire together, wire together. It means that the more a thought is repeated, especially in emotional moments, the stronger the connection becomes. And over time, that thought no longer feels like a thought. It feels like a fact, like the truth. This is how beliefs become biology. The girl who learned that crying made people leave becomes the woman whose immune system flares when she feels emotionally vulnerable. The boy who learned that stillness was punished becomes the man whose body shuts down every time he tries to rest. Not because they are broken, but because their biology adapted to keep them safe from emotions, from rejection, from the past. And here's the tragic brilliance of the body. It remembers what the mind tries to forget. It encodes survival into tissue, into reflex, into rhythm. That's not dysfunction, that's loyalty. Now imagine this. A woman spends her adult life obsessively dieting, always feeling out of control around food. On the surface, it seems like a willpower issue. But underneath, her body carries a belief: I am never allowed to have what I really need. Because she learned early that her needs were too much. So her biology obeys constantly, in deprivation, constantly in rebellion. No diet can fix a nervous system that's trying to protect her from emotional starvation, or a man who keeps getting sick every time he gets a break, because his nervous system only feels safe in motion, and collapses into vulnerability when he's finally still. Their bodies aren't betraying them. They're being obedient to the oldest instructions. But here's the hopeful part. Beliefs can change. And when they do, the biology follows. Not overnight, not with a mantra, but with repetition, safety, and small moments of disobedience to the old rules, like choosing to rest before you've earned it, like allowing yourself to cry and survive the wave, like saying no and realizing the world doesn't fall apart, like speaking kindly to yourself even when you're not performing. Each act becomes a new instruction, a new story, a new signal to your cells that it's safe to let go, safe to digest, safe to sleep, safe to heal. There's a kind of healing that doesn't look like healing. It looks like unlearning. It looks like breathing deeper. It looks like saying, I'm allowed to feel this. It looks like stillness, slowness, softness, the very things you were once punished for. And over time, the body listens. It always has. It just needs new instructions, not shouted, not forced, just whispered, again and again, until they're strong enough to rewrite the code. In the next chapter, we'll explore why your body doesn't follow logic. It follows emotion. And we'll begin to understand why feeling safe, not just being safe, is the missing link in so many health journeys. Close your eyes, if they're not already closed. You've made it this far, and your body is listening. It always was. Chapter 2, The Hidden Command Center. Why the body listens to emotion, not logic. You keep trying to reason your way out of feelings that your body still thinks are threats. Your conscious mind is smart. It learns facts. It makes lists. It tells you what's rational and what's not. It reads the articles. It understands the science. It knows you're safe, that you're not in danger, that the past is over. But deep inside you, there is another mind. Older, faster, quieter, and far more powerful when it comes to running the body. It doesn't care what you know. It only cares what you feel. And that, right there, is why you can't think your way out of anxiety. Why you can't logic your way into rest. Why you still feel unsafe, even when everything looks fine. Because the body obeys the emotional brain, not the rational one. There's a structure in your brain, small but mighty, called the amygdala. It's often called the fear center, but that's too narrow a name. It's not just about fear. It's about emotional memory, about survival. It decides almost instantly whether a moment is safe or dangerous, even before your logical brain has had time to weigh in. This is why you can jump when someone surprises you, even if you immediately realize it's just a friend. The emotional brain reacted before the logical brain arrived, and that's not a glitch. It's a feature. In fact, the part of your brain that controls logic, the prefrontal cortex, is much slower. It analyzes, it interprets, it makes meaning, but when it comes to health, when it comes to healing, when it comes to the rhythms of your heart and lungs and gut, it's not the loudest voice, not even close. This is why you can say things like, I know I shouldn't be stressed about this. I know that person didn't mean to hurt me. I know I'm not in danger, and still feel tension, nausea, headaches, exhaustion, because your body is not reacting to what you know. It's reacting to what you feel. It listens to the emotional tone, not the intellectual sentence. It listens to what's underneath the thought, the tone of your inner world, not just the words you say to yourself. So when you say, I'm fine, but your chest is tight, your gut is bloated, your jaw is clenched, your body knows the truth, and it chooses to trust the emotion, not the explanation. A woman once said, I tell myself I'm safe. I write it in my journal. I repeat it before bed. But my sleep is still broken. My shoulders still ache. My heart still races for no reason. And here's the answer no one gave her. Your body doesn't listen to affirmations. It listens to repetition. An emotion, it listens to pattern, to tone, to sensation. Telling yourself you're safe doesn't work if you're simultaneously rushing, judging, suppressing, and pushing through. Safety isn't a thought. It's a felt sense. It's in the rhythm of your breath, in the pace of your day, and how gently you speak to yourself when you're struggling. That's what the body hears. That's what tells the hidden command center, we're okay now. We can shift from survival into rest. Let's go deeper. The emotional brain is directly wired into your autonomic nervous system, the system that runs all the background operations of your body. Heart rate, breath, digestion, hormone release. Inflammation, the emotional brain, doesn't just observe these systems, it steers them. So if you're emotionally flooded, even if the stressor is just an email or an awkward conversation, your body reacts as if it's in a forest being chased. Blood moves away from digestion and toward your limbs. Cortisol surges, muscles tighten, immune responses lower, not because your life is in danger, but because your emotional wiring can't tell the difference between threat and tension, between trauma and today. This is how emotional patterns become health patterns. Unresolved grief becomes chronic fatigue. Suppressed anger becomes migraines or tight jaws. Shame sits in the gut, rewriting digestion until nothing feels nourishing. You can eat all the kale and drink all the water. But if your emotional brain is in a loop of "I'm not safe," your body will keep preparing for war. And in a war zone, the body doesn't heal, it protects. It shuts down long-term repair in favor of short-term survival. But here's where things start to turn. Just like emotional threat signals can create disease, emotional safety signals can create healing. Tiny things, subtle things, a few breaths, a quiet walk, speaking honestly, even if your voice shakes, letting your body cry instead of clenching it away. These are not spiritual platitudes. They are neurobiological corrections. They tell your emotional brain, you don't have to protect me from this. This is discomfort, not danger. I'm allowed to feel this and still be safe. And slowly, your biology begins to listen. One of the most powerful tools you have is co-regulation. It means borrowing the calm of another nervous system when yours is overwhelmed, a safe person, a loving presence, a voice that says, you don't have to hold this alone. And even if that person is no longer in your life, or never was, you can recreate the effect through memory, through imagination, through nervous system exercises that mimic co-regulation, like placing a hand on your chest, breathing slowly, or listening to a soothing voice that reminds you, you're not in trouble, you're just alive. The body doesn't need a lecture. It needs experience. It needs to feel something new, over and over, until that feeling becomes familiar. You can't convince it with words, but you can teach it with kindness, with rhythm, with consistency, with pauses. This is how the emotional brain rewires, not with pressure, not with perfection, but with presence. And as it rewires, the body begins to do what it's always wanted. To do, heal, rest, rebuild, regulate. Not because you earned it, but because you finally felt safe enough to allow it. So tonight, if your body is still buzzing, still tense, still guarded, don't fight it. Speak to it in the language it understands. Breathe slowly, move gently, say less, feel more. Let your logic take the night off. Let your emotions come forward like old messengers, finally allowed to deliver what they've held. And know this, you are not weak for feeling. You are healing from the inside out. In the next chapter, we'll explore how your body makes the ultimate decision to protect or to heal, and why that decision depends on one hidden question your nervous system is always asking. Am I safe? Close your eyes now. You've already done so much just by listening. Let the silence do the rest. Your body is learning. Your story is changing. Chapter 3: The Safety Signal. How the nervous system decides whether to heal or protect. Your body doesn't need permission to heal. It needs safety. Your body has a choice to make. Every moment, it's choosing between two paths: to rest or to run, to heal or to protect. It doesn't do both. Because healing is a luxury. and protection is a necessity. When your body believes you are in danger, it shuts the doors to rest and repair. It puts healing on hold. It redirects every drop of energy toward surviving whatever it thinks is coming next. It's efficient, brilliant even, but also exhausting, because most of the danger isn't real anymore. It's remembered, it's emotional, it's internal and still. Your nervous system obeys. The system responsible for this decision is your autonomic nervous system, a silent operator that governs nearly everything without you needing to think. Heartbeat, breath, blood pressure, digestion, immune responses, hormone release. This system doesn't ask what you want. It asks what you feel is safe. And the moment it senses threat, real or imagined, physical or emotional, it flips a switch. Not gently, not gradually, but like a power outage, from rest and digest to fight or flight, from healing to surviving. It's called neuroception, the unconscious process your nervous system uses to scan for safety or threat. And it doesn't just read the environment. It reads your relationships, your posture, your tone of voice, the expression on someone's face, even your own thoughts. It's always scanning. Am I safe here? Can I let go? Do I have to be ready? And when the answer is no, your body tightens, your breath shortens, your heart rate rises, your stomach slows, your pupils dilate, your immune system braces, all because your nervous system decided that protection must come first. Let's tell a story. Imagine a child who grows up in a home where love feels inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes withdrawn, sometimes praise, sometimes punishment for the same behavior. They never know what version of their caregiver they'll get, so they learn to stay alert, to perform, to earn love. That child's nervous system adapts. It stays slightly tense, slightly fast, slightly vigilant, ready to fix, ready to please, ready to avoid disapproval. Now imagine that child grows up and everything looks fine. They have a job, a schedule, a good diet, even a yoga mat. But something inside still feels tense for no reason. It's because the nervous system never stopped protecting, because safety was never felt long enough to become familiar, because neuroception still says, we can't let our guard down. This is why healing doesn't happen just because you want it, or because you've tried everything. It happens when your body stops bracing, and that only happens when it gets a signal. You're safe now. But here's the catch. Safety isn't just the absence of threat. It's the presence of connection. You can be alone in a quiet room and still feel unsafe if your nervous system is holding onto old alarms. And you can be in the middle of chaos and feel calm if your nervous system feels anchored, seen, co-regulated. It's not about what's around you, it's about what's within you. There's a branch of science called polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. It changed the way we understand trauma, stress, and healing. Polyvagal theory explains that your autonomic nervous system has more than just on and off. It has three main states: ventral vagal, safe and social. You feel calm, open, curious, able to connect and digest and breathe freely. Sympathetic, fight or flight. You feel anxious, angry, restless, ready to move or fix or escape. Dorsal vagal, freeze or shut down. You feel numb, hopeless, disconnected. Your system has gone into hibernation mode. Each state is a survival strategy. None of them are bad, but only one of them, the ventral vagal state, allows for full healing. And to enter that state, the body must believe. I am safe, I am supported, I can let go. So the real question becomes, what helps you feel that way? Not what you should feel safe doing, what actually soothes your system. For some, it's a familiar voice. For others, it's warm light, gentle music, or slow movement. For some, it's solitude. For others, it's presence being held, heard, hugged. Your nervous system is unique. It has a personal language of safety. The key is listening. You can't force it, but you can invite it. Again and again, until it begins to trust. Here's a truth to remember. Your nervous system isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you using old data. It's working off memories, not reality. It doesn't know the past is over unless you show it. Not through perfection, but through consistency, gentleness, repetition. Each time you breathe slower, you send a message. Each time you move with softness, you reinforce the signal. Each time you allow yourself to feel without fixing, you're teaching your system. This is not a threat. You are allowed to heal here. You might notice something strange. The moment you begin to slow down, truly slow, grief comes up. Tears, fatigue, old emotions you thought you buried long ago. That's not regression, it's recovery. Because when the body finally gets the signal that it's safe, the backlog of unfelt experience comes forward to be processed, integrated, and finally released. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that healing has begun. So tonight, instead of asking why can't I just relax, ask instead, what would help my body feel a little safer, even for a moment? Maybe it's dimming the lights. Maybe it's wrapping yourself in something warm. Maybe it's turning off the pressure to fix anything at all. And maybe, just maybe, it's whispering, you've done enough today. You're allowed to rest now. That's how it starts. Not with a breakthrough, but with a signal, a safety signal. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when your body no longer feels obligated to stay in danger, and how emotional boundaries, not walls, but bridges, can become medicine. We'll uncover how no isn't rejection, it's protection, and how reclaiming your space is the first real prescription your nervous system has been asking for all along. So let your eyes soften, let your breath deepen. There's nothing to chase here. You're already moving toward rest. Your body can feel it. Chapter 4: The Emotional Immune System. When boundaries become medicine, healing isn't just about what you let in. It's about what you stop letting through. The body protects itself in two ways, with defense and with discernment. The first is primal, a flinch, a fever, a flood of adrenaline. The second is wisdom, the slow, quiet art of knowing what belongs and what doesn't. This wisdom lives in the immune system, a vast network that surveys, filters, decides, and in many ways, your emotions have an immune system too, because just as your body can become inflamed from toxins or pathogens, your soul can become inflamed from guilt, pressure, overexposure, and people-pleasing. The immune system protects your cells. Boundaries protect yourself. Most of us were taught that health means doing more stretching, more supplements, more effort. But the real shift begins when we ask, what am I constantly absorbing that's exhausting me? What am I allowing that keeps my body in survival mode? It's not just bacteria that drain us. It's chronic self-abandonment. It's emotional leakage when your energy is spent keeping others comfortable, while you quietly erode inside. Boundaries are not cold walls. They are intelligent filters. They decide what comes in, how long it stays, and how deeply it's allowed to affect you. And when you begin to honor those filters, your body feels it. It softens, it rests, because the war at the edges of your soul has finally ended. Let's look at this biologically. When the immune system becomes confused, when it can't distinguish between friend and foe, it attacks itself. That's called an autoimmune response. Now apply this emotionally. When your sense of self becomes blurred, when you don't know where you end and others begin, you start saying yes to things that hurt. You start accepting blame that isn't yours. You override your needs, thinking it's kindness. But just like the immune system, overgiving leads to inflammation. It shows up as burnout, chronic fatigue, resentment you swallow and shame yourself for, a constant ache in the chest that no deep breath seems to relieve. These aren't just psychological symptoms, they're biological alarms, warning that your emotional boundaries have been breached. We rarely notice the cost of overextension until the body sends the bill, and the signs are subtle. You dread phone calls, but pick up anyway. You feel guilty resting, so you overschedule to prove your worth. You say, "I'm fine," when what you mean is "I'm drowning." You minimize your needs because someone else has it worse. But every time you silence yourself for the comfort of others, your body tightens. Every time you ignore your no, your nervous system interprets it as a threat, a signal that you are not safe to protect yourself. And so it stays in defense mode. High alert, inflamed, tired from holding up a version of you that was never meant to be permanent. Here's a gentle truth. Boundaries are medicine. They are not selfish. They are sacred. And they are a form of self-communication. Each no tells your body, "I respect your limits. I will not abandon you for approval." You don't have to carry everyone else to deserve rest. And the body listens, because when it knows that your mind won't betray it to keep the peace, it no longer has to stay tense to protect you. So what does a healthy boundary feel like? It's not loud or aggressive. It's not a shutdown or a punishment. It feels like clarity, like staying rooted while the world moves around you, like choosing discomfort in the short term for alignment in the long term. It sounds like, "I can't commit to that right now. I need some time before I respond. That doesn't work for me, but thank you. I care about you. And I also need space." At first it feels unnatural, because your nervous system has been conditioned to survive through compliance. But over time, each boundary becomes a signal of safety to your cells, to your breath, to your sleep. You are no longer asking your body to tolerate what it instinctively rejects. There's a metaphor worth remembering. A healthy immune system doesn't just attack threats. It intelligently selects what to respond to and when to rest. In the same way, emotional health isn't about saying no to everything. It's about saying yes to what aligns and releasing what doesn't. It's about not absorbing everything that's offered to you. Not every opinion, not every demand, not every emotional weight tossed your way. You are not a sponge. You are a filter, a gatekeeper, a living boundary between what heals you and what harms you. Let's take this into the body. When you say no with integrity, your muscles release tension, your digestion improves, your sleep deepens, because your system no longer has to carry the threat of disconnection. When you let go of performing, your breathing deepens, your jaw loosens, your voice changes. Even your posture begins to soften, because it no longer needs to brace against your own silence. Healing begins when you stop pretending. You're okay with things that make you sick. You might wonder, but What if I lose people when I set boundaries? And that's a real fear. But the truth is, if someone only loves you without limits, they are loving a version of you that does not exist. Boundaries don't drive real love away. They reveal who's safe to stay. And they show you that you are worthy of care, even when you're inconvenient, even when you say no, even when you disappoint someone. Your worth is not up for negotiation. Tonight, let yourself feel where your edges have blurred, where the fatigue isn't just physical, it's emotional, where your system has been inflamed, not from food, but from chronic over-yes-ing. And ask yourself, where am I still leaking energy in exchange for acceptance? Where have I been apologizing for simply existing with needs? Not to shame yourself, but to reclaim yourself. Because every clear boundary you set is a promise kept to your body. In the final chapter, we'll explore how your identity, your self-perception, becomes the blueprint for your biology, and how healing isn't just about what you do, but who you believe you're allowed to become. Let your breath slow now. You are not being too much. You are finally becoming honest, and your body is listening. Chapter 5. The Rewritten Story. How Self-Perception Becomes the Path to Health. There comes a moment, quiet, maybe even imperceptible, when your body starts to listen to a different story, not the one you were told, not the one you've rehearsed in your mind for years, but the one that whispers, you are not broken. You are becoming, and that changes everything, because the body listens. It listens not just to biology, but to belief, not just to the food you eat or the sleep you get, but to the way you talk to yourself in the dark, to the names you call yourself when no one else is around, to the roles you accept, to the shame you swallow, to the expectations you carry like armor. And maybe, for the longest time, the story you carried said, I'm fragile, I'm too much, I have to hustle for my worth, I have to prove I'm okay, I have to pretend I'm strong even when I'm terrified. The nervous system tuned itself to that frequency. The hormones followed suit. The muscles held tension. The gut braced. The immune system stayed on edge. Because the story said, life is something I survive, not something I live. But what happens when the story changes? What happens when you begin to believe, not in a loud, positive affirmation way, but in a slow, cellular, felt sense way, that you are safe to be you, that you don't have to be perfect to be well, that the nervous system isn't just a highway of reflexes, it's a record of everything you felt but couldn't say, that healing doesn't mean becoming someone new, it means remembering who you were before the world taught you to abandon yourself. This is not just poetic, it's physiological. In a landmark 2007 study published in Psychological Science, researchers found that people's self-perceptions, especially those tied to agency and self-worth, strongly influenced immune function and recovery outcomes. Even when controlling for objective health markers, the way a person viewed themselves shaped their healing trajectory. It wasn't just about biology, it was about biography. Your body reacts to your autobiography. Not just the events of your life, but the interpretation of those events, the meaning you gave them, the roles you assigned yourself in the story. If your identity has always been the anxious one, the fixer, the sick one, the overthinker, the burden, the one who has to stay strong for everyone else, then every system in your body may organize around keeping you alive in that role, even if it slowly depletes you. But when that story begins to shift even slightly, new physiological doors begin to open, healing begins. the moment identity expands. It's not about denying what's happened to you. It's not about ignoring symptoms or faking positivity. It's about telling a more whole truth. Instead of "I'm sick," maybe it becomes "I'm sensitive and my body is asking for something different now." Instead of "I'm broken," maybe it becomes "I adapted to survive, and I can also adapt to feel safe." Instead of "I always sabotage myself," maybe it becomes "A part of me learned to stay small because it was safer than being seen." These are not affirmations, they are integrations. Because here's the truth most people don't know. Healing doesn't start with self-improvement. It starts with self-inclusion. Including the part of you that self-sabotaged, the part that dissociated, the part that lashed out, the part that gave too much, the part that checked out, the part that numbed, binged, ghosted, avoided, snapped, lied, or pretended everything was fine. You don't heal by exiling those parts. You heal by rewriting the story they've been forced to carry. Alone, there's something called narrative identity in psychology. The idea that your sense of self isn't just made of facts, but of the story you tell yourself about those facts. For example, two people can go through similar childhood experiences. One believes, "That happened because I wasn't enough." The other learns, "That happened because someone else was hurting, and I survived." Same facts, different narratives, different long-term biological outcomes. Dr. Dan McAdams, a leading researcher in narrative identity, found that people who viewed their life stories through the lens of redemption, meaning they believed their pain led to some deeper transformation or wisdom, were healthier, more resilient, and even lived longer than those who saw only contamination or tragedy in their narratives. That's not just a mental trick. It's a physiological intervention. Because when you believe your life has meaning, when your suffering has context, your nervous system begins to downregulate. Stress hormones decrease. Immune function improves. Sleep becomes easier. Digestion stabilizes. And most importantly, self-sabotage softens, because the war inside you no longer has to be fought. You've begun rewriting the rules, so how do you begin? You don't need to write a memoir. You don't need to have all the answers. You start by listening. You listen for the story you've been living, the one your body repeats every time you feel unseen, unworthy, unchosen, unsafe. The one your breath shortens for, the one your stomach flinches at, the one your mind rehearses just before bed. All the ways you weren't enough, didn't do enough, messed it up, or fell short. And then you pause, and you ask, whose voice is this? Is this a truth, or is this a wound I've mistaken for a truth? What would I say to a child who believed this about themselves? What would it feel like to be the adult I needed back then? Not just for others, but for myself. These questions don't fix everything, but they loosen the grip of the old narrative. And sometimes that's all it takes to start healing, because your nervous system doesn't need perfection. It needs permission. Permission to feel differently, to believe differently, to be differently, not overnight, but over time. This is why therapy can be so healing. Not because a therapist tells you something new, but because they reflect a different story back to you. One where your patterns make sense. One where your pain has logic. One where your symptoms aren't a failure, but a flare from a body that never gave up trying to protect you. Even journaling can change your biology. In one groundbreaking study by Dr. James Pennebaker, participants who wrote about emotionally significant events not just what happened, but how they made sense of them, showed improved immune function, lower stress, and better long-term health outcomes. Why? Because the act of turning chaos into language is healing. Naming what hurt you gives your nervous system a direction. Retelling your life from a place of compassion gives your brain a new map. And honoring the old story, even as you gently outgrow it, lets your body feel safe enough to let go. So maybe tonight, as you lie there, you can begin the slow process of retelling your story, not for anyone else, not for performance, just for your body, for the systems inside you that have been listening all along. What if you said, "I've tried so hard, and I'm still here"? That means something. Maybe my body wasn't betraying me. Maybe it was begging me to stop betraying myself. Maybe I don't have to be perfect to be loved or healed or worthy. Maybe I just have to be present, and maybe I'm allowed to be new, even now, even after everything. That's the story your biology wants to follow. That's the signal your nervous system has been waiting for. Not another stress spike, not another perfection spiral, but the quiet shift of inner safety. And when that story becomes familiar, not forced, but felt, something powerful happens. The body stops bracing, the mind stops rehearsing worst case scenarios, the breath returns to the belly, the muscles soften, the inflammation subsides, because finally, you're no longer fighting yourself, you're walking home, and your biology is following. So rest now, not because you earned it, not because you did everything right, but because your story is sacred, and it's being rewritten in the quiet. You are not the sum of your symptoms. You are not the roles you had to play. You are not the pain you had to carry in silence. You are becoming, and your body knows the way. Maybe tonight, you'll finally sleep with a little more softness in your body, a little less fear in your cells, a little more warmth toward the parts of you that were never broken, only trying to stay safe. Because by now, you know something that many people never get to hear, that health doesn't just begin in the body. It begins in your perception of yourself, in the way you speak to your pain, in how you hold your stress, not as a failure, but as a signal, and perhaps in how gently you begin again. You were never just a collection of symptoms waiting to be solved. You were a story that was misunderstood, a nervous system that only ever wanted to feel safe, a mind that got tired of pretending, and a body that, when given a new story to believe in, finally began to exhale. So, if something in this video shifted something in you, even just a little, I invite you to leave a comment. Tell me what part of the story felt like it was written for you. What truth did your body already know, but needed to hear again? Let this be a space where you don't have to be perfect, where healing is not a performance, but a homecoming. And before you close your eyes, take a breath with me, slowly, lovingly, like someone who no longer needs to fight their own body. You're allowed to rest now. You're allowed to feel safe. You're allowed to heal, not just because you want to, but because you finally believe you can. And if this brought you peace, if this made you feel understood, share it. Not for views, but for the quiet hearts who've been waiting for this kind of science. Told with soul. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep learning how to listen to your body and rewrite your health from the inside out. Sleep well, you've done enough. You are enough. Good night.